Here.
Mr. Nielsen, Mrs. Contreras,
Here.
Mrs. Hashanek.
Here. We'll have Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Is there any call to the public? No call to the public? At this time, I'll just request a moment of silence. It's a good time to silence your phone as well, and we appreciate that. All right, thank you. At this time, it looks like Dr. Freeman, you're going to take over regarding the instructional partnership RFI respondents and release of an RFP.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. We put out an RFI. We used procurement lists to circulate that throughout the state, and we used the Rodell Foundation as a consultant to add names to that list. We received only one response to the RFI. We think that we should continue with the procurement model because we don't know that we would be in a position to completely justify to the Auditor General a sole source. That may in time work out to be true. And so while we would have loved to have more respondents, we have, I think, a unique proposal in that we have a set of partners, an Arizona charter that has worked with high needs, with kids in high needs neighborhoods and performed well, with an out-of-state partner who's worked in multiple states, working to raise achievement with a model that's been applied with other providers, both with the potential to bring philanthropy to bear on the school program. And so, as we had discussed in the past, the ability for the board to meet a potential respondent to an RFP, to hear about what they do and what they're like, and ask questions of them that I couldn't answer, or I would be answering in the hypothetical, which may not be all that reassuring, and see how they really respond and what they really think, especially given the fact that their experience is so unique. We would like to invite them to the podium. They've sent in a few slides to kind of show you what they've been doing. This is Mike Miles and Michelle Moore and Julia Meyer. They, I think they make an outstanding team. Mike is the founder of Third Future Schools, and they are in Colorado and Texas, but he also served as superintendent in the Dallas School District, and 6 years as a superintendent in Colorado Springs, a track record of establishing high performance culture, and he's served the public interest as a soldier, statesman, company commander. He has, quite an outstanding and interesting background. Military academy at West Point, so he'd be like our own little Texas John McCain over here. And he's going to tell you a little bit about their program. I think, like I told you before, it would be, I think, to the district's advantage to have multiple responders, but we actually, I think, have a multiple response team presenting tonight that has really strong credentials. So I don't know, Mr. Miles, if there's anything else you want to say about your team or the people that are with you. If you want to jump right into slides, Madam President, it's all right with you. I'd just like to turn the program over to him.
Sounds good. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you for being.
Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Freeman, thanks for giving me some time. And in the Q&A, we'll bring up members of the team to answer any questions you would have around strategy and innovation. I think we should just jump in and save most of the time for the questions and answers. I'm the CEO of Third Future Schools. We have 6 schools right now, 3 in Texas, 3 in Colorado, but we're expanding fairly quickly. This is our 6th year, and 4 of our 6 schools are turnaround schools. I put this slide up at the beginning because I think we, the education profession, most of the country, we're at a point where we're at a critical nexus. COVID didn't help our kids across the country, especially at-risk kids, and we need to work with some urgency. And my network, Third Future Schools, we're about helping the underserved kids. This slide also shows what we're about. We know that all students in America, that's that blue line, depending on whatever test you want to take, NAEP, NWEA, the state exams, all students are that blue curve, and that dotted line and the kids to the right of that dotted line are the kids who are proficient. The unfortunate thing is at-risk kids are where that red curve is, and only 15% of our underserved kids are proficient. And so all of our schools focus on in underserved areas where there's higher poverty, higher language barriers, and so that's where our soul is, about helping kids. And I know, and I've spent time with Julia, other people from the area, and that's what this community is about, helping kids. So we know we have to do 2 things in Third Future Schools. Our North Star is we want kids to learn how to learn and learn how to think, but on the ground, practically, how it manifests itself is 2 things. 1, we have to get our kids to read, write, and do math at grade level. You know, our wealthier white peers, and all kids need a good education, but our wealthier white peers score at the 65th percentile. The kids who come to our schools, when they start, they're around the 30th percentile. So our goal in Colorado and Texas, and hopefully here, will be to move them to the 65th percentile, and we want to do that in 3 years. So kid grows 9 percentile points every year, we're going to get there. But there's another gap growing, and that's where you see the second big oval on the bottom there, and that's year 2035 competencies. Meaning this, even if a kid could read, write, and do math at grade level, they still need some instruction on information literacy, communications, problem solving, critical thinking, and experiences that many of their peers get. So year 2035 competencies is something we want to bring. And those experiences, I'll talk a little bit more later, are things like piano or karate or photography or graphic design, engineering, robotics, those sorts of things are year 2035 competencies as well. So real quick, I know that this is not Texas, but we do have schools in Texas, and we want to show that in every single place we're in, and we're in 6 different cities, we've been able to grow achievement pretty significantly. This is one of our schools in Texas, Midland, Sam Houston Elementary School in Midland, and they went from an F status, that's what Texas has, A, B, D, C, D, F, to a C during COVID from 53 to 68. It was the highest growing school in the state of Texas, and it's a big state. This is what they were able to do in 2 years. At the top, when we took the school over, it was at an F status. In 2 years, they were at 89. So we didn't get A, but we were close to an A. My team said, you know, it would have been better to get like an 83 or 84. Getting 1 point away from an A just hurts. But Ector College Prep is a 1,400 student body middle school, 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, all in one place. And they went from 58 to 86 in 1 year. The NWA is something we do. That NWA is a MAP assessment. It's a nationally normed assessment. Many schools take it. We use it because it helps us compare schools across 2 states and 6 cities. So you can see on the slide there, their schools are on the left. We have an additional school this year in Texas. But on the left are our schools. And a 1.0 is the national average for growth in reading, math, and science. Our schools grew almost 2 years in 1 year's time. And that's on a nationally normed assessment. More important is what I was talking about earlier, those two curves, the red and blue one. Our schools on the bottom right, you see that on average, a kid in our school grew 9 percentile points. That means moving the achievement curve to the right 9 points in 1 year. That's on average. So think about it. If you do that 3 years in a row, that child will be where their white, wealthier peers are. Again, all kids need a good education. We're purposely serving underserved kids, and we want to move that curve to the right. So that's what we've been able to do, and that's what we want to help here in Phoenix and Littleton to do for your students in partnership. For us, it's about the quality of instruction, and that means a whole lot of things. But in the end of the day, we have to have really good teachers, I know you know this, who are very effective at delivering high-quality instruction. For us, we have a very differentiated model. And I'll just be very, very quick. Dr. Freeman, it's okay if I just talk quickly about the instructional model? So there are 90-minute classes, reading, math, science, social studies for middle schoolers. The first 45 minutes is direct instruction at grade level. Direct instruction at grade, that's important because a lot of students who are behind never get grade level instruction. Now we have lots of scaffolding. I know there's 2 of you are teachers, so you know what that means. We do lots of scaffolding, lots of visuals, lots of supports during the direct instruction for 45 minutes. Then the kids take a demonstration learning. Again, I apologize, I know you know what this means, teachers, but for those who may not know, it's a mini quiz, a demonstration of learning for 10 minutes. And based on those 10 minutes, that demonstration of learning and the 45 minutes of instruction, kids are separated into 4 groups. L stands for learners. S1 stands for kids who are securing their learning, which is near proficient. S2 is secured, they are proficient, and then accelerated. Those are 4 groups, and we do this every day, every period. So the kids who are have secured their learning, they're proficient, or accelerated, they leave the classroom and go into a team center, and learning coaches help them because they don't need a lot of help, they're proficient, and they work independently or in pairs. The learners and kids who are securing their learning stay in the classroom with the expert teacher and continue to get more guided instruction, again, at grade level. But these materials are all separated and very highly differentiated. Teachers, you know how hard it is to do that. But we have, over the years, developed a curriculum. Our curriculum developers do that, and they provide those lessons and the PowerPoint and the demonstration of learning and the visuals for the teacher, who we expect to be teach like a champion, meaning they are in front of kids, they're engaging kids, they understand the question behind the question, they turn a question into a response for the whole class, they keep the pace, they keep the rigor. That's what they do every day. So that, in a nutshell, is our model. And then at 90 minutes, the classes change and the kids go to their next subject, and the same thing starts all over. The first 45 minutes, direct instruction, demonstration learning, going to the team center. In that way, by the way, every kid gets what they need. So kids who are ahead get challenged every period. Kids who are behind get more time with the teacher, not a para, not a sub, with the teacher. So that's how we've been able to get 2 years growth in 1 year's time, even in 6 different areas of the country, or in 2 states. The other big part of our program that we want to bring to you is what we call the dyad concept. The dyad concept is based on this slide. This is a very simple version of what it is, but basically it says, look, kids need a good education, reading, writing, math, science. Yes, no question. They need to know how to read in the year 2035. And they also need experiences and perspective. So we have a learn how to learn model. We help them with critical thinking, and we help them with experiences. So in our schools, and this is a 7th and 8th grade slide, kids have requirements that are not just reading, writing, math, and science. That's in the top blue there. But they also have labs they have to complete. They have performance arts. They have team sports. This is a really short version of that. Public service hours. That's what they have to do. So every 2 grades, that's where the word dyad comes in. 7th and 8th grade is the dyad. 5th and 6th is the dyad. 3rd and 4th is the dyad. They have to complete these requirements. So you'll find in our schools, all of them, we have members of the community coming in. Not only does a student have 1 hour elective every day, 1 hour, on top of that, in addition to that, they will have 90 minutes twice a week in a dyad course. So piano, martial arts, dance, depending on the school, mariachi, photography, graphic design, cosmetology. It depends on the school and the community. So the people who teach these dyad courses, these performance arts and athletics, they are community members. So we engage the community. And in our biggest school, the 1400 middle school I was telling you about in Texas, we have 34 community members coming in, providing activities for our students. And we would do the same here. We would find the community members who are willing to come in, a photographer, a person who has a karate studio, a dance studio, guitar lessons, piano, any number of things based on the community that we find ourselves in. We also do student travel for middle school, 7th and 8th grade, and we've done some for 6th grade, depending on, I believe we're thinking about K-5, so this may not apply unless those grades change. But all of our 8th graders who meet attendance requirements, they can't miss more than 9 days, and those who also get 0.7 years of growth by December, they will travel out of country. This year we're going to Japan. The 7th graders who meet those requirements will travel out of state. This year we're going to Washington, D.C. Last year we went to Washington, D.C. for the 7th graders and Costa Rica for the 8th graders. And by the way, everything is paid for. We paid for the passports and how to get the passport. And that was an experience for many of our kids who'd never been out of country. We have a high performance culture. We respect our teachers. We work them hard, but they're very committed, and we get committed teachers for our kids. The last thing I want to talk about is workforce, because I know across the country, staffing's an issue everywhere, except at Third Future Schools. Meaning this, we don't have any vacancies, we haven't had any vacancies, and we won't have any vacancies. And the reason why we won't is because how we staff our schools. We have teacher apprentices, we have learning coaches, and our concept is to have every kid have 185 student-teacher contact days where it's high-quality instruction. So even if a teacher goes on maternity leave, the very day she goes on maternity leave, there's a person who can jump right in to her class, not a substitute. We're talking about a person who knows our model, who's highly skilled, and can replace that teacher, step in for that teacher right away. We've done this because we believe the workforce is changing, and probably for the better. For example, we think more and more teachers want work-life balance, a better work-life balance. That's probably a good thing. You know, I'm not a millennial. When I was teaching, two hours a night after the kids went to bed, I'm doing my lesson plans. And that was, that's what most teachers did back then. Most teachers now are saying that's probably too much. That's too demanding, and that's not good for our work-life balance. And who can blame them? That's probably a good thing. But that's a real thing that's happening in our profession across the country, not just in education, by the way, but particularly in education as we're talking about it. I think as a profession, we're going to have to find a way to pay teachers more. And so this notion of waiting 15 to 20 years to make a decent salary where you can provide for a family, I think that's going to be a harder and harder sell as we go forward as a profession. And then finally, and this, I don't have any data on this. This is just me, anecdotal information. You can see from my resume, I'm a professional public servant. As an Army officer, a diplomat, and now an educator. And I've always been able to, and willing, to work for less money than my peers who graduated from Columbia with me, because I was making a difference. And in the classroom it was the same way, right? I was, I'll reveal my age. I've worked for $24,000 my first year as a teacher, but that was okay because I was making a difference for kids, and those low salaries were okay. I don't think the low salaries are as okay with this generation of teachers coming in. So we're going to have to do something differently. One of the things we do for our teachers that's different is that we take a lot of the non-instructional tasks away from them. So as you can see on the slide, discipline is handled by administrators. We have just minimal rules for kids, and they always step up and rise to the level of expectation, but we don't allow kids to disrespect teachers. Teachers like that, and the discipline is handled by administrators. Lesson plans, I already told you, they're made by our curriculum developers, and so this differentiated model, teachers are handed it. Now, they don't have to use the materials they get or the demonstration learning or the PowerPoint, but almost everybody does because they're really good. Copies are made by support personnel. If we receive a school here, we will put in a mini copy center so teachers don't have to make copies. Papers are, I already told you that teachers grade the DOL, the demonstration learning, every period, but after that, they don't have to grade any papers after school. We have learning coaches who grade some papers after school. And then they have minimal duties. That's just how our model works. And when I say minimal, 75 minutes max. Most schools only have an hour a week, 1 hour a week, not every day, 1 hour a week. And that's only because we open our doors at 6:30, and we have to have some teachers watching the kids at 6:30. Instruction doesn't start till 8, so kids don't have to. I did a presentation like this. There were kids in the audience who started booing. But they thought they would have to go to school at 6:30. Doors are open at 6:30. Instruction starts at 8. But any kid can come, at 6:30. Mom and dad, this is really for parents, right? Not so much for the kids. They can drop them off, get to work, by 8 o'clock, and then the kid can go to class at 8. I already told you we engage community consultants. We want to be part of the community. We want to be part of you who are in the community and represent the community. So we want to engage the community, and we do that in a number of ways, the least of which is these community consultants who help us with the DIAD program. We have really good teachers. We will continue to expand the reach of our best teachers. We have apprentice teachers. That's part of our model. And these are people who are in the school. They're certified. They have degrees, of course, and they can step in when we need them to. We also have learning coaches. These are really the support people. They're the ones who do the lunch duty. They take the copies to the copy center and bring them back. They are in the team center helping those small groups of kids. So learning coaches are invaluable, but they're not as skilled as a teacher, and we don't pay them like a teacher, but they get paid very, very well compared to many other positions in other networks. our attitude as a network is that we know it's very hard to get kids to this level these days, especially if kids come to us who are struggling readers. Not everybody will. And in your district, you probably don't have as many struggling readers as we do in some of our other schools. But still, we'll get a fair share. We know that, right? Kids who are struggling in reading, math, and almost everybody has, it's not that they've given up, but the chronically failing schools have been chronically failing for a long time. There's a reason for that. And many people think it's impossible to turn around a school or to help kids get to the 65th percentile in a year or two. And we think it's not impossible, but even if it were, it's still necessary. So we want to work with this district. We want to work with this board, the superintendent, as partners. We don't have all the answers. We have the answers for a group of kids we think. We've been successful with our model. It works for a lot of kids. And in every place we've been successful, and we've been able to raise achievement, as you saw in the scores. We want to do that here. But the last thing I'll say is these are your schools. This will continue to be your school if you bring us in to operate a school. It will be your school. We'll work in partnership with the superintendent and his team. But you're always in control, and we see ourselves as guests. We also see ourselves as somebody who has to deliver, or you get to find somebody else. If we don't meet our goals in the first year, in the second year, you should be looking for another partner. I would say at the end of the first year, but the scores will come out so late that it wouldn't do justice to the next operator. So if we don't get results at the end of the first year, come the fall of the next year, you should start looking for somebody else, and that we'll write that in the contract. Even if we are successful, and we will be, in 3 years, at the end of three years, you should be able to make another decision and say, hey, you guys did all right, but our strategic vision has gone this way, because that's your prerogative, right? You're the board, you're in charge of strategic vision, and maybe you want to do an all-girls school, all-boys school, or some other AI, artificial intelligence school, whatever. But that should be your prerogative, and it be written in the contract that way. If, on the other hand, you want us to say we're doing well, and you want us to stay, then we'll certainly want to continue. But that will be 100% the board and the superintendent's decision. Who has the first question?
I have a lot, so I'm going to turn it down that way and let them start.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
So here goes.
It'll spark other questions.
My thoughts are just on paper, so bear with me as I was trying to write really fast.
Yes, ma'am.
So first, the concept is very different, so I can see why it's a new concept, at least in the world that we currently exist in, right? Mm-hmm. Maybe not in Texas or Colorado, but here in Arizona, it's a new concept. Most of us grew up here. Some of our spouses went to school here. So this is generational in some areas more than others. So my first question is, I did some quick, and let me emphasize quick, research on hiring websites about Third Future. Mm-hmm. I only did 2, so let me be fair. They weren't really that good. Repetitively, they talked about don't go there. They work teachers, and I'm reading what I wrote down. They work teachers to death, military style, run. If it's too good, ask questions, and so on and so forth. Now, that could be several reasons, right? Sometimes changing everything, making it upside down, sometimes sends people that are not able to accept change in a different direction. But the theme was pretty consistent enough for me to write it to ask. So what would you say to that? Because normally if a person looks for a job, whether you agree or disagree, they Google, right? That's what we do. We go Google and we look at Indeed, we look at Glassdoor, Facebook, all of those things. Give me feedback from that, of what your thought is to that.
Yeah, couple thoughts. First and foremost, you have to look at our climate surveys of teachers, right? So yes, this is a tough model to work in, and we talk about that. Meaning, the reason why it's tough, even though we provide all these supports, we're asking you to teach 6 hours in a day. That's a lot. I don't know what you guys do here, but I know what our profession does, and I know what Dallas did, and I know what Harrison, I was superintendent of both Dallas and Harrison School District in Colorado Springs. And so I know what those hours are, and Third Future Schools, it's 6 hours in front of kids. And I already told you, you have to teach like a champion. You are on stage, you are engaging kids, you're turning the question, and you're keeping the pace. That's hard. Do we work the kids hard? Because in every criticism, there's always a kernel of truth, no matter what the criticism is. And there's a kernel of truth in what you just read, right? Yes, you're going to work hard at Third Future Schools. Now you're going to get $15,000 more than the average person in another district or the surrounding district, but that's the trade-off. The other thing is we are a high-performance culture. We have a concept of essentialness, so let me talk about that. We think we're an essential organization. So during COVID, and the comments you're reading are from the COVID period, and during COVID, we didn't close our schools. Yes, we wore masks, we were properly distanced, we did all the things we were supposed to do, but we didn't close a day. We had to close 2 months when the governor of Colorado said close our Colorado schools in April and May of 2020. You remember, that's when it started. After that, not one day. That summer, we opened up probably the only, there probably were others, but the only ones that I know of in Colorado were in-person summer school. Only one in the state of Colorado that I know of that had a summer school in person. Yes, we wore masks. We were properly vaccinated when the vaccines came out, et cetera. So did that scare some people off? Yes. We don't close, ever. We were the only school in the state of Texas during the big freeze, that was 2 years ago, you may have heard it on the news, where all of Texas was frozen, power lines were out and everything else. Every school was closed for a week. Third Future Schools, Sam Houston Elementary School, was the only school open in the entire state all 5 days. We don't have snow days in Colorado. When there's a snow day, our kids come to school, our teachers come, and about 1/3 of our kids come to school. We don't close. Drives me crazy when Denver Public Schools is closed and Starbucks is open. So yeah, when other teachers are used to, oh yeah, you need to close on a snow days, you need to cut teacher slack here. We say no. Now only 1/3 of our staff comes, but still 1/3 of our staff has to come to school on a snow day, and some teachers don't like that. So you know, some teachers will say run from that, and we're okay with that. I'll give you one other example, and this is the part of the presentation you'll also learn. We're very transparent about everything. You can ask me any question, we'll tell you straight, because if you think, you know, that you need to close on a freeze day, then we're not the right partner, right? It's got to be a two-way street. The other thing I will say about the culture of essentialness that some teachers are used to is some teachers in our profession are used to having docked days. We don't do that. I'm sorry. The dock day, for those who aren't teachers or maybe you don't use that term, is when the teacher goes over their amount of sick leave and personal days and save days, and they're just gone, and the district doesn't pay them for that day. So for us, unless there's unique circumstances or emergency, you don't get more than the days that we have allotted. You get 2 weeks at Christmas, 3 days at Thanksgiving, 1 week at spring break, 6 national holidays, 2 recess days, 9 personal days, and 40 days in the summer. If you need more mental health days than that, then Third Future Schools is not the school to work for. And so, yeah, some of those comments are people who had, like, you know, they went 15 days and we said, okay, I'm sorry, you're done. Run from Third Future Schools. So, yeah, guilty is charged on some of it's just exaggerated social media stuff, but for the kernel of truth in those comments, yeah, we're guilty.
Thank you. I appreciate the honesty, and that's the way it has to be, right? Those questions has to be vetted in order to have that partnership.
Yeah.
Having said that, you thank you for your service in the military, but also sometimes military becomes military, right? You don't shake, or sometimes unable to shake that military training that you've been given. So do you think your schools run like a military? Because it does, I mean, just sitting here, it does sound a little bit like that. What's your feedback to that?
Yeah, I've faced that question 25 years or more. Because of my background, look, I say come to our schools. You will see that they're well run, and if that's part of my military training, that's probably a good thing. But it's not a military academy. Kids will tell you they have fun, they like the dyad, they like and the way you can tell that too is that people vote with their feet. So at Sam Houston Elementary School, we started with 320 kids 2 years ago. They opened with 470 kids this year. Ector College Prep, the 1,400 student middle school, opened with 1,320 last year. This year we opened with 1,390, and it'll grow during the year. And I can talk about the Colorado schools too. Those are the most recent example and closest. But people would not come, kids would not stay, kids would get in a lot of trouble if they thought it was a military academy. You also forget I was a diplomat. Well, no offense to any politician, but there's a huge difference between a diplomat and a politician in my head. But so as a diplomat, you have to weigh various policies and analyze, and also make sure people are taken care of, right? You have to you have to relate to them. You have to have their perspective. So I think the military side, the good part of that people may not see is that this is a hard job. And if you're going to do anything that is out of the usual and really do what's right for kids, then you have to have leadership. And you have to be willing to face the music, you have to face the criticism, and still do the right thing. I know I'm speaking to the choir, and you guys are leaders, so you know what I'm talking about. If you do anything that's out of the ordinary for kids, you're going to get criticized on social media, and you're probably going to get criticized worse than I was criticized, with crazy stuff sometimes. But if you let that stop you, then I don't know if that's leadership. And I'm sure Dr. Freeman understands exactly what I'm talking about. But anybody who's going to do anything real, you're going to need that leadership. And the military has taught me leadership, fire under pressure, and that's what I bring. The other thing that military brings is a way of looking at organizations in a way that's very effective. We're very efficient in Third Future Schools. We have units that are exactly the same, so it's very effective. So when we buy, the spin bikes for our diet program, they're the same spin bikes everywhere. When we write a curriculum or a school calendar, we write the same calendar for everybody, and then we massage it for the district, because we want spring break to be the same, Christmas to be, but the rest of it's the same. So it's like, in that sense, is it a military in that everything looks the same? The LSE model I was describing looks the same in Aurora, Colorado as it does in Austin, Texas for us. Same curriculum. No, well, not same curriculum, same model. Curriculum is separated because Texas has TEKS, Colorado has Colorado standards, and we'll adjust for Arizona if we come here.
You guys stop me if you have questions and jump in. So, I do agree with you in terms of being criticized. I've certainly had my task at that as well, but being a leader is being criticized, so can agree with that. So let's talk about now your salary, because I also looked at your salaries.
My salary?
I'm sure yours is 3 times more than theirs, but their teachers are very well paid compared to even our own salary here, okay, from what I can tell.
Yeah.
But it speaks to what you talked about in terms of the demand and the requirement. So I do understand the pay, but how do you get the funding for that? Where does your funding come from for that kind of pay? Because, I mean, if you can get it, why can't we get it? So I'm trying to understand that component.
Yeah, so let me be diplomatic. Yeah, so I'm glad you noticed that you can go to any of our websites and look at our funding because it's there, our salary plan. It's not really a salary schedule. We don't have the same salary schedule as everybody else has, meaning we don't pay for years of experience or college credit, right? So you're all familiar with the step and lane. And so one of the reasons why we're able to pay more and do it in a different way is because we don't have a salary schedule. So we have, I mean, if you want to, at some point I can show you, but we pay based on, we use a hospital model. And I know it's hard to see, but let me just try to describe it a little bit. We pay for what the employee brings. So if you are a 6th grade reading teacher in our network, we're K-8. We either have middle schools, one elementary school, and the others are K-8 schools. If you're a 6th grade reading teacher, your starting salary is going to be 69 or 70, somewhere in there, starting with 0 years of experience. And if you have at least 3 years of experience, it's the only years that we consider, your starting salary will be minimum salary, not starting salary. Minimum salary will be 74. If you teach math, though, it's about $4,000 less. If you teach social studies, it's about $6,000 less. If you're an elective teacher, the minimum salary is going to be about 55. In the Texas and Colorado example, Arizona dollars are different. So Arizona dollars are about $6,000 less than our average salary. So if the average salary in Texas is $74,000 for us, which it is, in Arizona, the average salary for third feature schools is going to be about $68,000. Yeah, I mean, the average is 68, but some will be higher, some will be lower, and yes, based on what you're teaching. We also have incentive pay. So you have to be, if you're a proficient teacher at the end of the year, that's a 4% bonus the following year. If you're distinguished, it's 7 or 8%.
If I'm not, am I terminated?
If you're not, if you're unsat, you're terminated.
Yeah, that's what I read too. So
Yeah, if you're unsat, you're terminated. If you're progressing one, it depends on a lot of things. Are you a new
Right.
teacher? You know, are you progressing? Are you actually progressing? And you know, are you taking the feedback? Things like that. But if you're unsat at third feature schools, and that's about 4% of teachers, or 3%, somewhere in there, you will not be invited back.
once your contract, and I'm on a contract, I'm assuming, right, for a year?
You're on a 1-year contract, but you're an at-will employee,
Okay.
okay?
Right, so that's that. So you don't have substitutes.
No.
I understood that, right? So 6 of your teachers don't show. You have 6 somewhere standing by, can just fly in? How does that?
Only in a place like Ector, which is 1,400 kids, or the Academy, which has 800 kids, would there ever be 6 teachers absent. That rarely happens in our schools. But let's say it does happen at Ector. Yes, we have just, and I can give you an estimate for a school that we would have here. But let me give you real numbers. At Ector College Prep with 1,400 kids, there are 8 apprentice teachers and 18 learning coaches, all who are trained in the model. In Aurora, which is only 800 kids, this is near Denver, Colorado, there are 6 apprentice teachers and 14 learning coaches. So yes, learning coaches have a job, they're supposed to be in the team center, but we have more than enough people because our paradigm is 185 days of high quality instruction for every kid. You can't have that unless you have people who can step in. So one of the reasons why our model is focused on instruction. You asked me, how can we pay for all this? One is the differentiated staffing thing, but the other thing is we are a different system. So how we evaluate, how we coach, how we supervise, how we train, the instructional model, our salary schedule, it's all designed to have high quality instruction. And because of that, we have efficiencies. I already told you, you brought up my military background. We have an efficient, effective machine delivering high quality instruction, so we're able to pay more. We have a very lean central office staff.
So in turn, that's where your revenue you make, I'm still not, I mean, I get 64, 55, it's irrelevant, right? It's still pretty good salary, whatever level.
Right.
How do you get your funding? Where does that come from?
So in the first 2 years, we get additional funding through grants. So we get philanthropic dollars to buy bicycles, ViewSonic's interactive whiteboards, webcams. Every single classroom has a webcam, ViewSonic, lavalier, mobile mic, voice speakers, so that every day a kid, this is another reason why we have 185 days. If a kid is moved out of class, for example, for disciplinary reason, they'll go to the team center, they'll get online right then, and they'll go right back into class, but online through synchronous learning. If a kid is sick, they'll get online through synchronous, and it's every classroom, every day. So all this equipment, standing desks in our team center, we buy those. We buy cameras, pianos, all kinds of stuff. Chromebooks, if it's not provided, I think you guys are very well resourced there, but some places are not. That's what the money is for. By the third year, by our board policy, we have to be viable. Viable means being able to do everything Third Future School does without any extra resources, except for maybe student travel. So we plan to be viable, and we're viable because all of our money goes into teaching. We don't do a lot of other extras. We don't have a lot of other programs. We do teaching, we do it really well.
So are you funded by some government? I mean, you're doing tuition, so it's all.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, so the main dollars are the per pupil funding that the state gives to every school. So in Colorado, that's Colorado public dollars, and Texas is Texas public dollars. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yes, that's right. I'm sorry, I missed that. Mm-hmm. Right. Yes.
So tell me about your turnover. What's your turnover rate look like in a year, and then give me 3 years?
For teachers? So every year's been a little bit different because it's COVID, in the last. Oh, so before COVID, we'll probably have 80%, depending, some a little higher, some a little lower, but it's around 80%. But I want to challenge you a little bit that our paradigm's a little bit different. Even though we want a high recruitment and retention rate, it's not the recruitment and retention rate that's most important. It's the 185 days of high quality instruction. So if, for example, for some reason we had 50%, which we don't, but let's just say at the end of this year we get 50% turnover. The real question is, did that kid have 185 days of high quality instruction based on a curriculum that's consistent and aligned and delivered in a manner that is understandable to everybody? If the answer to the second question is yes, and we get the results, then I would take a retention rate of 50%. Again, that's an extreme example, just for effect.
How do you deal with the parents? Because we have, like anywhere else, your kid goes to Miss Reyes, and then you want your son to go to Miss Reyes. Do you have parents coming back and going, there's, I want so-and-so, and you're like, they're not here. How do parents react to all of that?
Yeah, so our parents have been happy with the model. And to be honest, the parents come to our school, kids come to our school, and so parents are choosing the school for a couple reasons, only the third of which is academics. The first reason, it's not a military academy, but it's a disciplined kids. Kids don't film kids in the bathroom with their cell phones because we don't let kids use cell phones, and we insist on that. They don't have it out. Kids don't bully other kids because we have a procedure for moving down the hall, not in march step and not with the, drum beat. But it's orderly. It's not crazy. 1,400 middle schoolers, that's when bullying happens. So parents come to our school because it's safe. The second reason why kids come to our school is because they like the DIAD program. And I wish it were about academics, but if you were to ask the average kid, on average they will say, I like piano, I like karate, I like choir, I like PE. And they get 2 of those, right, every semester. They get elective and they get DIAD. So they have 4 experiences every year. And then the third reason is they're having success. So the parents are happy with the teachers that we provide. And if a teacher leaves, and there's, I didn't say we don't have any teachers leaving. I do say that when a teacher leaves, somebody steps in right away. Parents love the fact that there's no subs. So even if there's like an apprentice teacher, the kids don't know that that's an apprentice teacher. They see a teacher in the classroom helping out the other teacher. And when that teacher goes or another teacher goes, they're familiar with that teacher, and boom, it steps in. So same with learning coaches. So I would say our parents have been happy with that.
So I'm a teacher. I'm not. It's a hard job. I'm not that, okay? But if I do anything for 90 minutes and that's all I do, that's repetitive. So I'm really excited. I'm doing it great for the first 3 months, and after that I become a robot. I get kind of robotic. What keeps a teacher from getting robotic? I agree with competitive. That makes sense, but how do you keep your teachers motivated?
Yeah.
They're so robotic at 90 minutes, this. How do you keep them motivated?
Yeah, that's a great question. The answer is every day is different. So, yes, the routine is the same. Yeah, LSAE is, it's 45 minutes, 10-minute DOL. But what they're teaching, and teachers who are real teachers, that really get into it, really want to deliver that content in a way that kids can understand. And that takes some creativity. That takes some real skill. And that's where the challenge is every day. So every day I've got this group of kids, and then the next period I have another group of kids, and I have another group of kids, another kid. So I'm seeing a lot of different kids, and I'm having to teach. And yes, not everybody can do that. And if a teacher is used to, we don't outlaw sitting down, but most teachers do not sit because they are engaging kids. They're walking around checking. And so physically, on your feet for 6 hours, that's a lot. They'll sit down for a few minutes every period, but most of the time they're on their feet, walking around, monitoring, engaging, and things like that. So, so the engagement is the difference in curriculum. And the other thing is the success they're getting. You wait and see. We're going to be doing the NWA MAP test. That's that nationally normed assessment in December. And it'll be a big deal for our teachers because because it's not a state test. There's no accountability for it, except at the end of the year for our evaluation. But for them, mid-year, they're going to be excited to see it, and they're going to be recharged, and they want their kids to grow. And it's going to be a big celebration for Johnny and Sally and Lakeisha and Miguel, who have, all grown 1.2 years in 5 months or 6 months. So that's how they stay motivated. We also have lots of professional development days. We have a professional development day every month, at least one. We have a lot in the beginning of the year. I think we have 17 total days in our calendar.
Can you speak to the curriculum or how special needs, like, so how is that, and what percentage may you have, because obviously you don't always dictate that, right? What percentage of special needs do you have, and how do you, have you been successful in helping them score, not only in academics, but, you know, other aspects of their life?
Yeah, ma'am. I've been in education quite some time and a leader almost the whole time, either a principal or above. And special education is one of those areas as a profession we have failed in, and I insist on helping special education teachers, kids, rise to the level of expectation. We need to do a better job as a profession. So what we do is we include them in the classroom, we give them grade level instruction, and our SPED scores are higher, are almost as high as any other kids as far as growth goes. Not proficiency all the time, but as far as growth. And you can look at our state tests in Texas or in Colorado, and that you'll see that to be true. The special education kids is just dependent upon the district. So for example, in our 3 Texas schools, there's an attendance zone, and we are partners, so that attendance zone is our attendance zone. We are not a charter school like a typical charter school. We are partner school. That means that the building is owned by the district. The kids are their kids. We take every single kid who wants to come to our school, every single one. And SPED depends. So at Ector, I think it's 13%. I think I don't know what it is here exactly. Yeah, and in Colorado, some of us have only 8 to 10%, and I think at Mendez we have like 15%. So, but whatever it is for the district, that's the percentage we want in our schools. And then we work with the district. Of course, we have SPED teachers, SPED support. We have an inclusion model. If a kid's IEP has a center base or life skills, then we will obviously work with the district for that. So if the district has an autism center, then if a kid is severely autistic, they'll go to that autism center. But all mild and moderate needs, or if the district works with us to put a life skills in our school, then that's what we'll do. We'll work on the cost. So in each of our schools in Texas, for example, we have a life skills unit, and that was negotiated with the district. So very conscious of, and when you come to a SPED class, and by the way, SPED teachers are coached and given feedback on a daily basis, just like all of our teachers. When you come to a life skills class, you're going to see instruction. You know, we, the profession, have done a poor job of raising expectations for SPED kids. You'll see that's our highest expectations. For other kids are the same with SPED kids.
Thank you for that. Talk about your suspension rate. What's that look like?
Mm-hmm.
Like, and whatever you call it or whatever form it is, what's your numbers?
You know, I don't know all the numbers off the top of my head. I can tell you this. After college prep last year, we didn't expel any kid. We didn't send any kid to the district's DAEP, it's alternative school, which we were allowed to. And we have what's known as progressive discipline. And I can show you slides right now if you want, but slides where we train our principals on how to discipline our kids. And the first line of a slide that I used last Friday at Professional Development for Principals Day is that the principles of discipline are what rule us, not any kind of list of offenses and consequences. And the first rule is in loco parentis, which is a legal term, you guys know it, in place of the parent. But the sub-bullet under that for us is that you have to like and love the child. So our progressive discipline is based on liking and loving kids. And if you don't like or love kids, there's nothing I can say to you. There's no discipline policy that's ever going to work. Restorative justice, progressive discipline, doesn't matter. PBS, positive behavior supports, it stems from whether you really want to help that kid. Number 2, we keep kids in school. So I told you about our most common practice is that you have kids taken out of the classroom because there's no disrespect to any teachers, and if that happens, the teacher sends them out, we never send the kid right back to the teacher, ever. Even if the teacher's wrong. We won't do that. We'll talk to the kid, we'll counsel them. We'll run out of time, so no anecdotes. But anyways, we'll put this kid in the team center on the laptop right back in the classroom. But so suspensions has never been a big issue. We will probably suspend more kids at the beginning of the school and only for the following offenses. When we took over Ector College Prep, the year before, this is middle school, the discipline was terrible. Lots of fights, lots of vaping, lots of, looking at kids on cell phones in the bathroom and crazy stuff, right? Well, we don't do that. We don't do crazy. If you come to our school, doesn't matter what size the school, you're not going to see crazy. And the reason is we have some very specific rules. We're going to progressively discipline you, but for fighting, most likely to get suspended. And then the fighting stop, after the first couple months. Vaping, we're going to suspend you, and then the vaping stops after the first couple months. Disrespect to teachers like F you in their face, no. That's a questionable one. We may not suspend you the first time, but you continue to do that in our schools, you're going to get suspended. So it's only for those sorts of offenses, and usually for our schools, after the first couple months, it settles out, and then you see the school that you see.
So before I continue with my 17 more questions, I'm going to stop because I have a lot, my head's spinning.
Okay,
But
good.
now I'm going to focus on governancy, right? Because
Governance,
we
sure.
haven't talked about that. So we're elected by our community. And as that, you have an obligation to try to talk to your community and do the best that you can. Excelling children, of course, that's always the number one priority. And so you have your, obviously your own governing board or whatever that looks like. Walk me through how that, I don't ever see two powers that ever work well normally together. You can defend that or not defend it, but it's hard, right? Because everybody has their idea, and my idea is better than your idea. So how do you get them to come together and find how that works? And what authority would you have versus what authority would we have? And then how do we explain that to our constituents when they're saying, hey, I voted for you, I didn't vote for them.
Yeah.
They don't understand it, they don't live here. Talk about that if you would.
Yeah, that's a great question. And, we have 5 authorizers right now, 6 schools, 5 authorizers. And everybody's a little, yes, so they're the ones who own the contract. And they're the other partner. So 5 different entities, because we're in different cities. And they're all a little bit different. And we've been successful because we work well, because we understand it's your school. We understand it's your community. But having said that, the contract has to be clear about who owns what, right? So for example, if we're in charge of the operations, then we're in charge of the operations, and anything operational is my board's decision. If everything else is yours, the support services, the central office, then those things are your decision. And there's you will write reporting requirements, things that we have to deliver, deliverables, achievement. Those are also yours. So we report to you. In all of our districts, we have said, the board, you are the partner. You're the controlling interest. So if you want to report every day, I'm exaggerating for a fact, we will send somebody every day. If that's how crazy you are. But if you want every week or every month, which is not inappropriate, we will come every month. If you want our discipline numbers, achievement numbers, we did a test, you want to see that? Yes. You want to come into the building any day, any time. It's your school, so you come. You are the controlling interest. On the things that we write in the contract that we're controlling interest, like operations, you don't get to tell us that this model is different and we got to use this. Yes. And that, I think, has worked well with the community. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so they're appointed by the controlling board in Third Future Schools, Third Future Schools Corporate Board. It's the Third Future School. Yeah, we call it a corporate board. It's Third Future Schools Board. It's in Colorado. They will help. If we were selected here, for example, we would need a local board because that's how we do things, and it may be your law. In Texas, it's a law there. So we would get 5 members of the local community. Hopefully, we're going to get Julia's help and other people's help, the Dr. Freeman's help. Yes, because we don't know the people, but every board that we've worked with and partners, education advocates in the area have suggested names. And from that group, we will go out and ask them if they would be willing, talk about our model and all this, and then it has to be approved by the corporate board.
And your corporate board is appointed as well, or are
They are now self-appointing. So once they got in, so the steering committee and the old board, the first board, chose that board. Now, if there's any vacancy, that board will fill its vacancy. Yeah. Yeah.
You're contracting with a private entity, not a public entity, so the same thing when we buy speech services. It's not a government company.
because they don't have multiple floors?
Yeah, the only reason why we do, because we're in 2 different states.
If you're an LLC or an S corp or different things, you have different rules that you have to organize under. So if you're an LLC, you do have to have.
Although we are a 501c3,
Oh, you are.
and the reason why
So
we
they have to have officers
right,
to have
and
a 501c3.
yes, sir, and depending on the rules of the state, we have to abide by the rules of the state. Texas requires people who are local to the state or live in the state to be on that board.
There's governance around the requirements, understand. I don't know Arizona's well enough to cite it, so I wouldn't pretend to know that. But I understand. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question.
Yes.
So I'm curious about the curriculum that you use in your schools. I noticed in my research that I'm assuming it's your main board has ties to a very prominent curriculum company. And so is that company, were they a part of creating your curriculum? Not that it's a bad company, I'm just curious.
Yeah, you're talking about Tammy Clementi from Houghton
Yes.
Mifflin. And no, absolutely no conflict of interest there because they have nothing to do with our curriculum. And our board has to fill out conflict of interest forms every year and submit them to the state. So the answer is no, none at all.
So none of that board would work with any educational kind of institutes or any kind of curriculum or any kind of anything that could be, not that it is, but could be viewed as a conflict of interest?
We are meticulous to a fault when it comes to conflict of interest. I'm the former superintendent of Dallas ISD, and any suggestion of that would get you in the paper and get an investigation started. No,
Gotcha.
Could you talk a little bit about how the curriculum is created?
yeah. So we have 15 people right now who we call LSE curriculum developers, LCDs for short, curriculum developers. 7 or 8 are in Texas and the other 7 are in Colorado. And they develop, and many of them over many years, this differentiated model. They use different resources. We don't dictate that. So we have Lexia online, we have Zern, we have Eureka Math, we're starting to use Amplify a little bit. And so based on that, they get these and create most of the 4 differentiated lessons every day. They don't have any classroom time. They are on, they can work from home. They're called LCDs, and that's their job, is just to create the curriculum.
That was actually, because I taught in Texas before I came here, and because the funding level is so different, other states stand up curriculum offices, and actually some of the departments of ed have curriculum support. So in my first year of teaching, there's a whole set of curriculum resources from the district office, a crosswalked guide of the last 6 adopted materials, all by subject, all with the scope and sequence and pacing guide. So if something didn't work, you had alternative resources and a person to go to. In other states, that's way more typical. In Arizona, when I came here, I asked the curriculum specialist where the curriculum guide was, and he said, "You have a teacher's edition." I said, "Yeah, I know, but where's the curriculum guide?"
Right.
In the front of the teacher's edition.
Yeah.
Because Arizona just doesn't provide the resources for that kind of support, and it ends up being teacher work.
Yes.
So you can pay 15 people to do it, or don't pay them and have more money for teachers, and teachers have to do it. And you guys know about teaching in Arizona, that you are, you're your own cook in your own kitchen for quite a lot of things. But in other states, that's not true. There's a higher level of teacher support.
Yeah, Dr. Freeman, can I add to that? Dr. Freeman is exactly right. When I was in Dallas, when I was superintendent, I used to train teachers and principals on curriculum alignment, on scope and sequence, on the standards, how to break the standards down into objectives. I tried to train teachers on differentiation, which is really tough, but we try to do that. How to write a good lesson objective and good demonstration learning, on and on. And for most teachers, they can get it, but it takes time. And it's not that they don't want to do it. It's just a lot of hours after school. So we pay 15 people to do it network-wide, so it's an efficiency, and teachers love it. Now, they will tweak it if they want to tweak, and they can throw it out if they want. They still get their hour planning, okay, and a half-hour duty-free lunch. All of our teachers do. We have never taken a planning period away from a teacher ever in 6 years, 5.5 years, ever. So that's who does it.
So another question I have, it's more understanding. You have demonstrated slides that show academically you've been successful. And just hearing you and understanding or a little bit of your background, I'm sure you pride yourself on whatever you set, you're going to make it. And it does appear you've come off that way, and your slides represent that. So if it's that good, and you can pay me $75,000, and I get all this and all that, why aren't you everywhere? Why doesn't the Department of Ed assign you and say, this is it, this is the model we're using?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't understand
Yeah.
why you're not more out there.
So two reasons. Number one, we will be. This is our 6th year, and for most charter schools, 6 schools in 6 years, that's pretty fast.
That's a record.
But there comes a point where you start taking off, and we're not a KIP, we're not IDEA, we don't have a different philosophy than them. They want their buildings, and we just want proof points. We want points of excellence. So we will be is the answer, and the Texas Education Agency, for example, has a project with us, and just started in August, and over the next several years, we're going to be working closely with them to turn around. They have 500 or 600 F schools. We're the turnaround expert. Yeah. To do that. We're the turnaround expert in Texas. And so it will happen. We're getting calls from Tennessee, we're getting calls from Louisiana and several other places, and we only just started. The second thing is this, again, trying to be diplomatic but trying to be clear. What works in public education is a new education system. Nothing short of whole-scale reform really works to the level that we think schools need to be turned around. Whole-scale. Whole-scale reform is not most people can do, but also most people don't understand it. They don't understand how we can do whole-scale reform all at one time, be successful, and be financially viable. my retort is, that's the only way we're financially viable. It's like if I said we're gonna be a flying car, but you have to stick with the car and make it a flying car. You don't get to, start from scratch. You get to start from this car and make it a flying car. I get to start from scratch. Who's going to be much more efficient and effective? Me. Because I'm redesigning the system. I'm not tweaking the system, this old system. I'm redesigning a new system. And I can go into much more detail, but pretty soon we will be it, and others like us, and we will be everywhere.
Know about your accounting or how that looks. I know we're heavily scrutinized, and our accountants can talk more to that than I can, but I'm assuming if you came to Arizona and you came into our district, are you held to the same financial, and are you audited like we're audited, and you're given a report of how good or how bad or where your money, all of that still is applicable, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Not only that, if the board wants to have even more financial statements, then we would provide them.
What's your percentage of your budget given to your administration? And you can define administration, as I don't know how much of that you have. What percentage of your funding goes to administration? Because that's a big issue, right? We hear we don't pay teachers enough, we pay administration too much. And I'm not suggesting we do, because Dr. Freeman's sitting right here beside me. But it is, you have to discuss it, because it's in private, corporate America as well.
I think, I don't know, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I think it's somewhere around 10%. I know you guys are very efficient too, in your central office, but we don't have a lot of overhead. We don't have offices, the central office, because we're all over the state, so we just plop in wherever. I don't have an office manager or an assistant, personal one. I do my own receipts and everything else, my own travel arrangements. We are, and so does Michelle, who's a one-person strategic, innovation, strategy and innovations officer, going all over the nation and doing her thing. That's how we roll. We are very lean. We put the money in our teachers.
That's good. I like that. 10%, that's, we strive to stay relatively a small percentage as well.
You're very lean.
Yeah.
Because the nation is much higher than that.
Sometimes you struggle between being too lean, right? And I'm not sure we always know where the balance is, so I can respect that. Questions? No. Okay.
So you talked a lot about instruction and curriculum and assessments and all of that. And to be honest, a lot of it sounds very much too good to be true. But again, I'm still just soaking it all in. I wanted to ask more about students, because I'm all about the whole child.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of our students struggle with social emotional needs. And how do you address that within your schools and your programs?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so, and if you don't mind, let me also address the too good to be true. One of the things from my military background is I never lie. And I know that when people come and present, especially if they're operators or charters, they're putting their best foot forward, and they paint a picture of what they can or can't do. I'm telling you, everything I say we have done and will do, you're going to see. And if you come out to any of our schools, everything I talked about, student travel, dyad, pianos, ViewSonics, how the kids behave, the model, the teacher apprentices, you're going to see them in the school. This is not we would like to do. This is what we are doing. Your question, though, is really important, and that is the whole child. Because if you, and maybe I didn't spend enough time on it, but the slide with the two circles where, yes, reading, writing, math is important to us also. No question, because kids need to read, write, and do math in the year 2035. But it's that whole child that we're actually after. So one thing I didn't talk about is habits of success, for example, right? Which is our version of SEL. It's the respect, empathy, perseverance. Those are the things that we have every day. We talk to kids about. We had things called habits of success tickets. So teachers hand them out when they observe kids doing habits of success behavior. We have periodic assemblies and they can win prizes and stuff like that. But really it's more about the discussion around empathy, perseverance, respect. And that's a program, Habits of Success program. On top of that, I believe in actually putting social emotional learning and discipline ingrained in how you operate and how you treat kids and how you treat people. So we're open at 6:30. That's SEL. We never close. That's SEL. You know, when I was a very poor kid, one of 8 kids, growing up in Colorado Springs, my dad was in Korea. We didn't have any money, and when the school was closed, that was so hard for us because we didn't have heat a lot of times, and we didn't have food a lot of times. I mean, I was talking to Michelle earlier today. I've eaten more oatmeal than any kid in the United States probably, because we ate oatmeal for breakfast and sometimes for dinner, and that or cream of wheat. And there are many nights when the oven didn't work at all, but when it did, my mom would turn the oven on just to warm the house, which is very dangerous, but those are the choices you make when you have 8 kids and you got nothing else. So we don't close our schools because 1/3 of the kids will come and they will find a warm place, they will find education, they will find food. So, and when we open at 6:30, we're saying to the parent, we care about you, we care about your families because we know how it is. Just because everybody else has a 9-to-5 job or an 8-to-4 job doesn't mean, that you have that job. You might have to be there at 7 or 6. And so drop your kid off with us. We'll take care of them. The way we treat in our progressive discipline, we care about kids, we love our kids, that's social emotional learning. And then finally, the dyad program. When you see kids who are doing photography, and one example sticks out real quick, a girl who has an eye that's been damaged, she can't see, but I tell you what, her photographs are just so beautiful. And she's finding so much love and appreciation and passion and interest in that. That's SEL also. So, that's how we do it, both habits of success and the other broader things.
Well, we've been talking your ear off for 90 minutes, and Dr. Freeman has pointed out he's emptied his water bottle. So I would ask if you would bear with us.
These have been the best questions I've received in 5 capacity interviews. So.
Well, we are very much dedicated to our community and to our students. We've certainly have sacrifices. We've seen students here, and we've all lived perhaps to some degree of the story you just told. So I think we bring a passion for that as well. So bear with us. We're going to take a 5-minute break because Dr. Freeman wants another water bottle. Not that I'm pointing him out personally. I drank mine
So
too.
5 minutes and I'll be back.
Thank you.
I'll grab some water too then.
All right, we'll come back to order, please.
How did I get so many water bottles?
We are taking care of you. There you go. All right, well, thank you for bearing with us, that we
Sure.
appreciate that. Is there questions, or should I ask mine? It's up to you. Okay, so let's talk theory, right? So, okay, we hear you, we're ready to sign the contract with 1 million attorneys looking over it, right? Because that's what you do.
Yeah.
And then we argue over a few words, and then we finally agree.
Okay.
So now we're in motion. And we have a new school, right, that's going to open, but logically, and I've told our, why do I want to bring a third party in a school that I suspect will do well anyway, right? It comes from additional socioeconomic place. It comes from parents who perhaps may be more involved. Not that that's good or bad. Maybe they have different means. So it's different. So how do we put you in a school that perhaps needs more, I don't want to use the word assistance because they do a good job, but perhaps a little more challenging because of factors outside, their parameters. Is that how this would work? I'm struggling to understand now. We're there, and how does this get worked? Because we have teachers there, right? So you can't just go in and say goodbye, sorry, thank you. How does that work?
Madam President, members of the board, so right now the district has school choice criteria that the governing board has set.
Right.
So they are prior year enrollment, which no one will have. They are walking distance to the school, so transportation impact is minimized. And really, for starting out, then there's capacity, whatever we set the capacity for. One of the things that the management team has talked about is in the case of opening new schools, which we intend to do more than one more time, is that we could have some kind of needs-based test. So you could say, when it comes down to, what we've done before is first come, first serve. Like you get your choice in, and then if it's 500 seats and you're the 501st person, you're on a waiting list. Is the way we've done it before. But you could say that you give preference to kids that have an assessment that shows they're a year behind grade level or something. If you wanted to do a needs-based test, you could add that. That would be up to the board, not to the respondent, if you wanted to change any open enrollment criteria. They're not getting to pick the kids. The school district is. So whichever kids show up are their kids.
They pick teachers, so, or
They pick teachers.
So don't you have to have, I understand that, but where do they go? Like, I get what you're saying, but all of our schools have, not all are, maybe we're too short or whatever, but there are people there. How do you work more people into that fold? Does that make sense, what I'm asking?
More students or more staff?
More staff.
So essentially what we're gonna do is a growth projection, and I think we're running about 3%. So that means that you take, the number of kids times 1.03, and that's your projected seats. Then Ms. Garrison and her team are gonna look at if we want to open 18 rooms times 27 kids is 478 seats or whatever it is. You're gonna take 18 rooms, not 18 rooms because you're growing 3%, but you're gonna take the other 7 schools and take 2 rooms each out of each one to balance out movement and growth.
So no teachers are being displaced, it's merely you're projecting growth?
Projecting growth, yeah. So you have annual, so you're talking about staffing now. So we have annual turnover of staff, which is attrition.
Right. But it's, it could be, it's not a lot, but let's say it's 5%,
Right,
okay? So that's 5%, 3% growth.
that's 15 people, 3% growth is 18 people. Magically that worked out. Thank you for that example.
Yes.
But and so, I mean, probably there is more leeway in there than that. But if, let's just say, you know, we have more growth than that and we have higher retention than that, we can engineer that. We're going to do, does your heart belong to Littleton in February, and what's your school preference choice, first and second choice? So that's managed. You know, we have choices, and parents have first and second choices, and we have staffing choices. We manage that every year. Opening a new school complicates it, but the business rules are essentially the same, and the preferences are the same. But because you're not working in attendance areas, though a lot of people choose schools by their location, not by their program, if we're honest. You can also, you know, choose to give preference to, you know, certain categories of kids. I mean, as long as they're not, you know, constitutionally protected categories, that to meet an educational pedagogical need of the school district. I mean, that you can do. We haven't done that before because we were trying to drive people toward signature programs, not towards a demographic of learners. We do attend to the demographic of learners. I mean, so our school is 7% Anglo. We don't want to have a school that's 0% Anglo and another one that's 25% Anglo and have disproportionate distribution of race in our schools. We don't have that problem. There, people are naturally sorting and leveling. We don't have a school that's all boys and one that's all girls. We have balanced gender in our schools. We haven't had to take steps to engineer that. There might come a time when we would need to, but we haven't needed to. So that's within the purview of the board to decide how we move teachers and move kids.
But your school, future school, is it designed to take, and we wouldn't, but let's just go out here, all gifted kids? Because we could give you all the gifted kids, but that doesn't really serve the purpose.
Right.
No, you take them all up, then, yeah.
And we don't have any schools like that, and we wouldn't know how to act anyway.
Well, that's what I'm trying to understand. Your niche is to take.
Well, yeah, our niche is to take students who are struggling.
Okay.
And that's what
Struggling by your definition is what?
academically struggling.
Okay.
And that's what we prefer, but look, we want to be part of the community. So how you do it is how you do it. And then we will adjust based on that. The superintendent just said if you did have a requirement to have X% free and reduced lunch, X% struggling kids, then that's how we would do it.
So there's flexibility in that, just visual and conceptually it has to be laid out.
Yeah, and I think, you know, first, again, it's your school, number one. You have to answer to your community, and we have to answer to you on that sort of level. So, yeah, there's a lot of flexibility there.
Can you speak to a little bit about your calendar? Because I know by looking, and I think you've said you have 186 student-teacher contact days.
Correct.
And that is above in Arizona, 180 days.
many?
And then looking at your calendar, you have a
181.
It used to be 175 when we made a big investment.
Okay, that's great.
and then looking on,
That's why, because of the states he's talking about, they're 185 states.
okay.
We would have the same calendar.
Okay. Well, because I was looking at the 5th quarter and something said like mandatory for some students. And I was thinking
So,
for some kids that may end up not having a summer break.
so I think we'd have to negotiate that during the contract, if it's operational, and whether or not we could afford it. But you know, also we make sure we, you know, pay attention to the needs of the community. For some communities, the summer school is what the doctor ordered. It's always voluntary. It's been for us voluntary, except for the handful of kids who show no growth or, you know, declining growth or something like that. Then it's in lieu of retention, this is what you have to do.
And that makes sense. I was just thinking
Yeah, it's almost always voluntary. There are a handful of kids who, in lieu of retention, go to summer school. And so the calendar is something we would negotiate, since the calendar is something operational. But again, we would have to be very good at town hall meetings. By the way, in all of our areas, once the board gives us permission to engage the community, we have lots and lots of town hall meetings to introduce the model, bring them into the school, get them on a spin bike, whatever it takes, so that people become comfortable with. Yeah, and we're mindful of that too, because you're putting your not reputations, but yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're going to put that out there as well, and it's admirable that you are taking a risk, no question. I think it's a limited risk because we have so much experience. There's no question we're going to help, and the kids are going to like it, and the parents are going to like it. But you don't know that, for sure. You just have our record to go off. So yeah, it's a risk, and we need to be mindful of that, and we need to partner on that.
Madam President, members of the board, some things are not new and some things are new, and the combination of things and the approach we're taking is new. But I'm pretty sure that Vista Prep uses differentiated staffing. I don't know about differentiated pay. Mesa Unified is going to differentiated staffing, and I think they also have some differentiated pay. They're doing it out of necessity because of the workforce shortage, to try to manage that. And so, the difference in this proposal is workforce shortage is part of our motivation as the management team to be able to fill all of the teaching positions that we have, some of which remain vacant even today, and using other innovative approaches besides this idea for staffing for next year. The difference is taking differentiated staffing and not just being able to cover your responsibilities to supervise and provide instruction to kids, but to leverage it to make kids more successful. And I think what would happen, like if Mesa continued to do this and to work on it, they could work with their teachers to make kids more successful. By bringing on a partner, we're able to leapfrog over all the legacy costs of getting people up to speed with more success with differentiated staffing, because you're bringing in a partner who's already done it and knows how. Otherwise, we could do differentiated staffing, but it might take a long time to get people good at it.
No.
But it's differentiated pay is a whole nother issue, because then it comes into pay equity and some other things that teachers have fought for a long time. When, in the old days, women made less than men and elementary people made less than high school people. And so there are historical things that have led to a push for teacher responsibility and pay equity. Differentiated responsibility and pay is different than that. And so there are economic forces at work. And, some of what Mike has covered is the changing workforce of people who work in education, and responding to that, which I think is challenging given the cultural shift that you're talking about. And I think it would be hard for the whole district to do all together as well. Like, we're going to say we're going to take this on, and we're going to have differentiated staffing across the district. That might make recruiting even harder.
Yeah, I don't think there's any disagreement, but what Arizona will see is, oh my gosh, the school's out there, and they're not gonna think that deep into it, okay? They're just gonna say, they're bringing this in. But he brought up a point I had forgot to ask, and so you come into our district and you start your method. In the meantime, I'm over here and I'm a third grade teacher and I'm like talking to you and you make $75,000. What keeps me from jumping? And then we end up having a teacher shortage out of, something we've created, and that makes the paper. How do you keep that competitiveness, in the market? How does that work?
Yeah, it doesn't. Meaning, there is going to be some competition. Unless you don't want us to hire anybody from the district, we will certainly get teachers from Phoenix, and we will bring teachers outside of Phoenix, outside the state even. And so we will not have a staffing shortage in one of your schools, for sure. But unless you restrict where those teachers come from, there's going to be some teachers who want to work for Third Future Schools. Now remember, the very first question, right, is the startup. There's a trade-off, right? Some people are going to run from that, right? Because one thing we didn't talk about is instructional feedback. We use a coaching model, meaning like a coach on a football field, except we don't yell and scream. We give feedback that day. We don't wait 3 weeks. We don't wait 6 weeks. We don't just put it in writing. We give feedback on the job. We do it in a way that's professional. Some teachers hate that. So this is not a place to work. So yes.
So it's fair game.
Yeah, unless you have some sort of restriction, right?
We could decide if we want to do it, but I think people need to be clear apples and oranges. So
Yeah.
let's just say we've been here 100 years and we're 100 years of apples, and Mr. Miles is oranges. And then we say, well, what about our apples jumping over to the Orange Bowl? He gave the example of 8 and 18 staff members. Of the 8, not all of them made 75. One of them made 55, and somebody else made
right.
63. You're not talking about all 26 teachers making 75,000.
Right.
You're only talking about, out of 26 people, a couple. And that's differentiated competence. So we would take the 26 people and say, well, how long have you been here, and do you have a master's degree, and figure out what each one gets. And there is equity across seniority and preparation. They're differentiating based on the work you do, what the compensation you is. So you're not talking about 26 teachers making 75,000. That doesn't happen in our model or in his.
No,
Only one or
Madam
two do.
President,
So
no, I understand.
Yeah.
Madam President, the point's still well taken. There will be some, unless you place restrictions, there will be some teachers who are apples to apples. Like, I'm a language arts teacher, I'm a 6th grade or 5th grade language arts teacher, and you're making this and I'm making this, and I have 10 years on you, right? And there's going to be that. Every situation is a employee value proposition that's different. We have a different one. Some people don't like that employee value. What is the value of seniority, and what is the value of tenure, right? What is the value of that? Job security. I think the value of job security is $10,000. No, the reason why I got that number is when we did pay for performance in Dallas, teachers did not, or the ACE program, the moving high-performing teachers to low-performing schools, teachers would not move because their evaluation may be affected in 2 years because they're going to low-performing schools, even though $10,000 were what we were going to give them. But they wanted the security of their current situation. And so some people will choose that. Yeah. Right. Right. So it's a very important question, and I don't think you can get around it altogether, except to say that there's a different employee value proposition. The fact that you have some vacancies now actually should serve to relieve the stress of that, right? So. Yes.
Madam President, members of the board, so unless you work for the state, you're not in the state retirement system. Well, I mean, teachers who work in charters aren't necessarily in the state retirement system. They have that option.
Yeah,
So
we would be.
You would be what?
We would offer the state retirement system. Because if there are employees, which they will be, they will be getting, I don't know what the legal law is here.
Yeah, that's
If
what
it's optional, then we would join the state retirement system. In Texas, it's a requirement.
They would have to,
I think you have to file on.
they'd have to be constituted as a charter in Arizona, working with us. So they could, if they decide to come to Arizona, incorporate in such a way that would allow them.
Yeah, I mean,
to-
we don't have to decide it
to
today.
enter
I'm
in.
just thinking in
Well,
terms of
yeah.
what you're
I mean,
looking at, that is
It really
huge to
is up to
people.
them.
Yes.
I don't think it would be up to us or the board.
No, I'm not looking
Because it's their
for that.
compensation structure.
I'm just thinking value. If I'm an
The employee
employee,
value
I'm gonna weigh
proposition.
75, look at what I have to do, and can I stay in my retirement system? And, that's a huge value, depending on your age, where you're at, what financial goals you have, so, okay. We can-
It's a problem in all of our purchase services because right now the cost of being in the retirement system is fairly high.
Yeah.
And most charters who don't stay in ASRS give some form of retirement compensation, but at a much lower percentage. And actually, it probably is typical for other small businesses to say, we'll put 4,000 into a 401k for you or something like that versus our investment is still about 25% of wage.
It's very large. Yeah, you're
Wait,
gonna
your,
automatically
your retirement is 25%?
12 and a half to the district, 12 and a half to the employee, but it's a defined benefit program, not a defined contribution program. So,
And that changes based on legislation.
like if you live 10
But it
years,
never
you're
hardly
ahead.
goes down.
Okay.
So,
That's kind of high.
They're not really
oh
doing
yeah,
research.
but it was down to 2% at one time. I think 2.3.
The only reason I bring it up is
We're-
you're losing 12 and a half, depending on what you view.
Yeah. Yeah. In Colorado, it's 21%, so we're kind of used to it, but we think that's really high. Yeah.
We have our ASRS has restricted investment rules, so we can't take a lot of risk, so it's hard to gain back easily.
But I take your point, that's part of the employee value proposition for any person. Yep.
Madam President, members of the board, what the management team was hoping tonight is that, like I said, we might have more than one respondent. We're really pleased that we have one with a team with so much experience and breadth of competence that what we had anticipated is, let's just say we had a couple people. The next phase would be an RFP where they would compete for proposals for a committee to evaluate and bring one board or one provider recommendation to the board for consideration in December. This is a little unique because we only have one person, but still the RFP would need to go out, and it says all the things we went over with you before, plus the comments that members have made. It goes out and gives, in this case, the Vista First, Third Future, sorry. I thought you were First Future, and
You're fine.
and partnership team an opportunity to respond to the things that the district writes that we expect them to provide and that we provide, including things like tonight, which we hadn't stipulated, but the kind of reports that we would expect and those kind of things, because that generally means they need administrative support to produce reports. So they would be able to consider that. That would come back to the board for consideration again. So Really what we're asking the board tonight is for permission to move forward, giving them a chance to respond to you really with what the cost of the program would be if they were implementing it. And then in December, you could vote to move forward or not move forward. And that kind of is the final vote in December. If you don't move forward, we're going to post for a principal's position for the school for an international baccalaureate forum. If you do get that proposal back and review it, and you're satisfied with it and want to move forward with that innovative program, then you can vote to move forward with it, and then we would do all the work of bringing whatever curriculum material needed to be on display for 60 days and all of the other components that continue to give the board oversight and discretion in moving forward, but then having town halls and all of those other things that would need to happen. I don't think we picked a mascot and colors yet because we were waiting to get a planning principal to do that. And so, there are a number of other kind of business things, ordering furniture and a whole bunch of stuff, that needs to happen if we're going to do International Baccalaureate. Special materials for that we would need to have on display for 60 days. So December is, kind of put us all at a stress point to get to this. But if we move forward with sending those requirements out to them and giving them a chance to respond, the board in December gets to review that and decide if they want to move forward or not. I think one of the challenges and frustrations has been our discussion's always been hypothetical until we have a proposal. And so our recommendation is the board does approve us to release an RFP for them to respond to. But if you're not comfortable with that, the sooner you tell us, the sooner, we get on with Plan B.
So that's really what we're discussing.
You're not making a contract tonight.
Right. We're discussing if we're comfortable enough to move this RFI forward to an RFP. And if we're not, there's no reason to waste time, energy, or resources or money to do it. So that's our discussion. I think for me, it's just a lot to absorb. I kind of feel this is the first time I've been able to ask questions. I've certainly heard a lot of comments, but it's very different listening to you and watching your presentation, having your team. It just makes me that more unsure because now I'm asking, I'm thinking, and it seems rushed. I feel rushed. I don't know why. That's my feel.
For me, there's a lot of what ifs. Good information, and I appreciate the presentation. But again, it goes back to a lot of the what ifs. I worry. I have a lot of concerns in the back of my head for our current schools and our current, just our current staff and how that's going to look. Just the equity and the balance and all of that. There's just too many questions for me.
So your thought is more absorption, more time?
Yeah, exactly. Okay. I don't want to rush into anything. I appreciate that Kathy asked so many questions because it was just she was able to express a lot of what was messy in my brain. So, yeah, just for me, it's just a lot of what ifs and just a lot of just rushed.
I could repeat a lot of the sentiments that the rest of you have said. I guess what also is pressing in my mind is the time constraint. And while I do feel a little bit rushed, I also feel like we have a school that's opening and we have to make a decision. Like, I would love to say I need more time to think about this, but we really don't. If we're going to open this school, like we have committed to our voters that we will open this school next year, we have to make this decision.
So the decision, you have to make it to move forward with an RFP, or you have to move forward with deciding a principal, colors, and the other option?
I don't know exactly fully what I feel like, which way. I'm not 100% sure which way I want to go, but I also know that I want to feel like we are making some steps somewhere in some direction.
Agreed.
And I would feel comfortable approving for them to give us more information and things like that, because I know that this is not where we're signing off. And I would feel more comfortable with that, because I feel like we've had many meetings and discussing this, and we kind of just say, well, we'll come back to it. And now this is the middle of November, and school is starting, if they're following the same calendar our other schools are, it's starting the last week of July. And we just have a building right now, and it's not even a full building yet, but that's what we have.
Yeah, the concern with that, would it not be though, we're gonna go for an RFP, that's gonna be December. More than likely, you're not gonna get that, I mean, maybe we could turn in, you'd give it a date, 2 weeks, let's just say, you're in Christmas, right? That's a little bit crazy. So now you're in January. We haven't decided on this, and we haven't decided on moving forward with the principal, so that,
We're deciding in December.
okay, so the decision has to be made in December, is that what you're saying?
We need a direction in December. We've
Okay.
already pushed it. We should have.
December what?
I'm sorry, Madam President, members of the board. The timetable we had originally was 2 months ago.
Right.
And the observation that I made in the management team is we weren't really able to respond to the questions and concerns you had in hypotheticals
Right.
as a management team.
Fair enough.
So we put out the RFI, and it was stated in the RFI to present at this meeting, and then if the board moves forward, it's a month. So we put the material out, they have a couple weeks, it comes back, and we have a week or so to evaluate it, to make a recommendation to you to move forward or not at the meeting. That's a fast timetable. After that, there's only 1 semester left after winter break to do everything that needs to be done to open. And so we are at the, I don't know, the Apollo 13 last time around, if we don't make it
We
into
gotcha.
orbit now, we're going off into outer space. So
We gotcha.
there is an element of risk, but what I would ask everybody to understand is, to me, this is it's like the Visa card thing. It's like, I don't know, new shoes, $40, new bag, $200, but looking great, priceless, right? What price are we paying for having unfilled teaching positions? What price are we paying for having, intern certified people in front of our kids instead of fully certified experienced teachers? We are presently living in a risk environment where we have unfilled and underfilled jobs. And they're not in our face, but for me, they hurt. Because I don't think we're doing everything we should be doing for our kids. And so I'm willing to take a chance on something new. The other thing I would remind someone who often reminds me the same thing for 27 years.
Academically,
Been trying to come up with a way to get, and we feel good about, we get 1.25 years compared to other school districts of growth. I mean, our growth rivals our neighboring schools and our state averages. But 1.25 years with the staff we have, we think is pretty good. Our problem is our kids are so far behind that even with 1.25 years, they're still a half a year behind in 8th grade. To get our kids caught up, we need more like 1.5 years for 5 years, 6 years in a row. And so we don't have a model to do that. The people who are doing differentiated staffing, have been able to finagle a way around to get more one-to-one time to kids that is strategic instead of whole time and that kind of thing. So now I'm on the governance team, but I'm not elected, right? I understand the difference between me talking to constituents and you talking to constituents. But I think our constituents need to understand that, not to speak for you, but I already feel like we're losing ground in the model we're in now. Do you want to keep doing the same thing year after year where we're losing ground and repeat and have, instead of 12 unfilled positions, 20 unfilled positions? I mean, we're not planning to do that. We're planning to look at international resources for teachers to bring them to our school district, and we won't be the first district to do that. But we're going to keep trying and trying and trying to find ways to be competently staffed and put our best effort, in front of our kids in our community. So I don't know that this is the answer. I think they have demonstrated a good track record, and there's pros and cons for who would want to work for them and who wouldn't, and those kind of things. But I don't think we can replicate that kind of staffing model, pay differentiation, and that kind of thing. I know we certainly can't by next year. I'd have to have a whole lot of town halls.
Well,
I'm sorry,
I appreciate your passion. I can hear it, and believe me, no one's sat up here longer than I have and complained about academic scores. And we've had definitely difficult conversations. We've done things to take risk. I mean, we did a year-round school, right? We looked at it. It was a risk. It wasn't as successful, but we took it because our number one goal is to raise scores.
well, we
Just
did it
that
in
simple.
we did it in a teacher shortage. I mean,
Yeah.
that was the problem.
But nevertheless, we did it thinking that there was academically success in students. So I don't think we're a board afraid to do it, but we're also a board that whatever we do, we'll give it 100%, right? And we're may not be military, but we'll make it work, right? That's our goal to our community and to our children. So I understand. We're on a dirt gun, and it's tough. It's tough times. A lot of things are crazy. So with it, I'm going to call for a vote. I'm going to ask for an individual roll call. Oh, did you have?
I have to make the motion, don't I? Or one
Yes.
of us? I move that the governing board approve the release of a request for proposals for an instructional partnership at the Lakin Prep Academy.
And I'm going to ask Ida to do an individual roll call on that to approve or disapprove, and please state your position. Oh, didn't I already have, I'm sorry. I thought I heard a second. I'll second that. Now you heard it.
Mrs. Reyes,
Yes.
Mrs. Contreras,
Yes.
Mrs. Soshanek,
Yes.
So with that, that's unanimous. The direction is to move forward with the release of the request for proposals for instructional partnership at the Lincoln Prep Academy, returning back in December, and we'll go from there.
Thank you. We moved to adjourn so much for a short meeting.
All right, and thank you very much.
You're what a
We-
trooper.
We
Yeah.
appreciate you being here. I don't know if you came from Colorado or wherever, but we do appreciate your time.
Yeah, we get it.
I'm sure you're used to
Yeah.
military drills. We hope you
Hey.
did not take that personal. It was never meant
Oh,
to
no,
be.
I love the questions. It's the best.
131 minutes on his feet. He's he's willing to do whatever the teachers are.
Yeah.
And thank you to your other staff for being here as well. We greatly appreciate you, so
Thank you,
thank
Board
you.
members. Madam
Yeah,
President,
thank you.
I move that we adjourn at 8:11.
And
I'll
is that a
second that.
motion? And there is a second. Okay, meeting is adjourned, 8:11. Thank you. Do we have things